Welcome CSC 121, Programming 1 for Fall 2020. We're going to run through a series of list exercises using lists and list methods. And the first one we're going to do is fairly easy, so we'll start easy and we'll work up a little bit. The first one is exercise 16. It's called even odd numbers. We're going to make three lists. A list of numbers, a list of even numbers, and a list of odd numbers. That doesn't sound very exciting. We're going to use a for loop and we're going to create lists. So let's get started. First thing you might want to check out in W3 Schools, in addition to the notes that I have, is in W3 Schools, if you go to Python list methods, the first one we're going to focus on is append, and that's just adding things to a list or adding things to an empty list. And remember, with methods, you put the variable name dot and then the method name. So instead of a function, which usually comes first, we're always going to put the variable name dot the method, which is just like a function. And the argument is going to be whatever you put in it. So we're going to add things to a list from there. And we're going to use a loop with it too. So let's get started. And you can go to your repels in Replit. I'll go into CSC 121 and make a new repel. And these are not turtles, so you could go back to regular Python. And as far as a name, you could just call it 16, even odd. And I'll just put lists. And you could put your last name, first initial, and we'll create our repel. And there it is. Now, we don't have any other files in here, so what we're going to do first is we're going to create empty lists. We're going to create one called num. And to create an empty list, you're just putting the brackets. And then we'll create one called even, and we'll create one called odd. So these are empty lists, nothing in them yet, and we're going to append to them. The first thing we're going to do is add numbers to our num list. And let's call it nums. This should be called nums. So we're going to add numbers to our nums list, and we're going to do that with a for loop. And if you remember how to do that, we're going to say for I in range, because we didn't do anything yet. So we're going to say for I in range. And our range, we're going to make a number of, we're going to go through numbers of 1 through 20. And that's what you'll see in the instructions. So we'll use 1, and we'll use 21 since this range will not be included. So we'll put 21 here so we get numbers 1 through 20. So we're going to say for I in range, and we're getting a red wavy line because we don't have our colon. And what we're going to do each time is indicate the list that we want to append to. We're going to say nums because that's the list we want to append to. And we're going to say dot append. That's our method. And what are we going to append to that list? We're going to append I, because that's going to be what's iterating through here. We're going to say for I in range, it's going to go through all these numbers in here, and each time it's going to put I in here. And if you want to see what happens, you could print I each time, or you could see the whole list. We're going to put it at the end, so we'll just print out nums and look at the list when we're done. So we don't need to print out I and see all the numbers, we just need to see the list. So that's all we're going to do first, is just make our list. We're going to fill up this list with numbers from 1 to 21 and just make sure we have the right ones, make sure we have 1 through 20 before we worry about what's even and odd. So let's run it. And we have 1 through 20, so that works. So putting 21 in here, that's not included in our list when it iterates through, so it's making sure that it's creating a number 20. So we're just going to print out a list of even numbers and a list of odd numbers. Okay, so what we're going to do is cycle through that list of numbers and find out the even ones. So we're going to do the same thing we did here. We're going to say for I in, except we're going to say for I in nums. We're going to go through that numbered list for I in nums, so this will cycle through the list. And then what we'll do is we'll find out the ones that are even. Now, how do you find out if they're even? Well, you could say if I, and we use the modulus to say if it's divided by 2 and the remainder is 0, so if I divided by 2 and the remainder is 0, then we're going to append to our even list. We're going to say even dot append, and we're going to append I in there. So we could use I again here in this separate loop, because in here it's the iterator for this one. So it's cycling through the nums list. It's saying if I is divided by 2 and the remainder is 0, we're going to append to that list. And I'm getting a wavy line here. Oh, I think I forgot the equals. It has to be equals equals, not just the equals. Remember, we're not using the assignment operator. We're using the testing equality operator. And then here, we could just do else. Now, we could do something that, like a not equals 0 or something to find odd, but if they're not even, they're going to be odd. So basically, what we could do here is just move back out and line up with the if and say else. And we don't have to put a condition. We don't have to say elif I modulus 2 not equal to 0, and that's the way you would find odd. but we could just say else, and then what we're going to do is we're going to append the remaining numbers to the odd list. And we'll say odd.append, and we'll append I to that. And that should cover all the numbers. And then at the end, what we'll do is we'll just print out both lists. So this should be pretty simple. So we're going to print out the even list and the odd list, and that's it. So we have one loop that's creating the numbers for the nums list, and then we're going to cycle through that nums list by using for I in nums and determine the even numbers. The even numbers will be appended to the even list, and then the odd numbers will be appended to the odd list. Pretty simple. And let's see if this works. And there's our nums 1 through 20. There's our even list 2 through 20, and there's our odd list. That's it. That's all we wanted to do here, is just work with the append method of the lists and see if we can just pull it out. So that's 16. So you can share that when you're done. We may put these all together. We may put them as separate ones, but when you're done, remember to go to share. Remember to scroll down there and copy the link, and then put that in the assignment for exercise 16. And then we'll move on to number 17.